Hey guys, guess what? You're not going to believe this, but OpenAI just released a brand new GPT model, GPT 4.5. Everything's going to change. The world's about to end. Your job is gone. This is going to take your job. It's going to take your house, and then it's going to take your wife. And if you're lucky, it will let you keep writing some garbage JavaScript for the rest of your life. So look, once in a while, people ask me to talk about like these AI announcements. And look, there's enough YouTube channels talking about every single one of these. GPT 4.5, Claude 3.7, Gemini 2.0, 2.9, 6.9, 420. Who cares at this point? It's the exact same thing almost every time. And that's how I see it. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you want to click off the video right now. That's fine. Look, maybe there's going to be some AI, boomer, doomer, whatever in the comments saying it's going to take your job. I don't care anymore. I really don't. Like, whatever's going to happen, it's going to happen. But it's the exact same thing with every announcement. Like, the hype cycle, it just keeps kind of going. Like, yes, the world is changing. AI is becoming more and more prominent, more and more useful, but it doesn't matter. I mean, do you really have to look at these benchmarks? Do you really have to know? Here's the TLDR of the past few months. Let me give it to you. GPT 4.5, apparently it's pretty good conversationally and for giving advice. It's not very good for coding. Claude 3.7, people say it's better than Claude 3.5. Generally speaking, people say Claude is the best for coding. The Claude's models, Sonnut, I think it's pronounced. I think that might be the 10th time I mispronounced it. Now, at the same time, some people say this model is actually worse than 3.5. I don't know. I don't really care. Does it matter? Not really at this point. I mean, you should be using AI to some extent, and maybe it's up to you to decide to what extent that is. But to overuse it, there's going to be some issues as well. Some people say that new junior developers can't actually code now because they're over relying on like these models, kind of like how in the past people might have over relied on Stack Overflow. But I think, GPT is kind of taking it to more of an extreme. People are misusing it. Some people say if you use Cursor, it'll mess up your app. You'll get to a point where it just kind of puts a bunch of garbage code and it can't fix anything anymore. I think that's reasonable. There are still people, saying that AI is going to do everything. Here's a funny thread that I found on Twitter. A famous guy on Twitter making some pretty bold claims. All code was written with AI and Cursor and Grok, made a pretty impressive little game out of it. And people did have some responses that I found pretty interesting. Someone mentioned, in response, I've never felt more secure in my job prospects as a senior engineer. Can you explain? Game networking is hard, dark, and full of horrors. This is fine for a quick prototype. Making it actually feel and work nice for a lot of players will take about 100 to 1,000 times the effort and amount of lines of code written and deleted many times. And I thought that was a pretty reasonable tweet, but then you got AI bros, and I don't know if he's an AI bro, but I mean, God, his response for the amount of likes it got sounded kind of stupid to me. That's just my opinion. You sound like the typical gatekeeper guy who feels threatened for his future. You're not wrong for now, but with this mindset, gonna get turbo wrecked in the next decade. I thought, okay, I don't know what to say to that, but let's just continue the thread because you can't make this stuff up. And then he says, I'm not. He's gatekeeping, though. Coding, he basically said that you're being mad or whatever. I'm not. Coding is for anyone and everyone. He's scared he's going to be unemployed. And with that attitude, he will. Making some pretty drastic conclusions from what I thought was a pretty reasonable tweet. All he was saying is, look, like AI is doing a lot, but just so you know, I'm kind of an expert in this field. I know a lot. And AI for now is just scratching the surface. We got the main character showing up, Jonathan Blow, one of my favorite people, our old friend Jonathan Blow. It's guys like you. He just comes in from the top ropes and just, damn, it's guys like you making claims like this that are damaging the reputation of AI. Is it pretty amazing that AI can generate this? Yes. Is this anything close to the quality of what you'd need to build for an actual playable game? No, it's not within 10 ballparks of the target. And Jonathan Blow, like, whatever you say about him, sometimes he's controversial. You wouldn't say he's a bad programmer. You might disagree with some of his takes, but I mean, he's a smart guy, a lot smarter than me. I'll put it this way. If you have never tried to make a game, I'm sure it is fun to have a game making experience. For those who have made games, even just simple ones, getting stuff on the screen is not impressive. It's easy. It's making the game good that is hard. And funny enough, I thought this comment was doing a little bit more gatekeeping. But, Levels.io, he got a little quiet when Jonathan Blow, just shows up when he teleports behind you and tells you your opinion is invalid. Levels.io gets a little quiet, and I agree with this. And this applies to literally every art form or industry. The point is that AI lets me explore entirely new areas of creativity, which is really cool. I think the tone of his post, though, is typical gatekeeping, typical with developers, though. Obviously, I'll quickly figure out the complexities of this as I'm doing now, trying to broadcast the positions of 500 clients to each other at the same time. I don't know exactly what he meant by that when he said, obviously, I'll figure out the complexities. I didn't know if he meant he will learn the complexities and, get through them, or he meant that he'll recognize how complex it is. But Jonathan Blow, again, coming in hot, he said, all gatekeeping being bad is this weird millennial concept that was tried and didn't work out. This is part of what was adjudicated in the last election. Okay, getting a little political, but anyways, nobody is saying it's bad for someone to exercise their creativity and play with AI to make something they wouldn't otherwise be able to make. They are saying that this is very, very far from what an actual game programmer would make quality-wise, which is also true. That's not gatekeeping. It's understanding that this is actually a very deep discipline where a lot of skill is required to make something good. You accused a guy above of being threatened for his future because he just stated facts that any experienced game developer would tell you. Can't quite disagree with that. That's not just needlessly hostile, it's delusional. You are doing the Dunning-Kruger thing while being high on your own supply. Haughty because you are one of the AI guys who will own the future because they are on the right side of history or something. It is icky. And let's be honest, you always got these AI bros coming in, and the thing that's worse than people trying to sell programming courses, the people trying to sell AI to other people, they're not, they don't have good intentions. They're not coming in like, oh, AI is pretty interesting. It's going to change the world. They're coming in saying, hey, you programmers, you're out of your job. Hey, wait a few more years. You're not going to be doing anything anymore. And I think that's kind of the attitude that Levels.io has. He's a talented guy, but I don't think he's, he doesn't care about programming itself. For him, it's kind of a means to an end, which is fine. He's been successful, but I mean, he's been successful by largely just creating random AI crap like photo AI generators. Okay, I guess. But continuing, and he responded to the remark, quickly figuring out the complexities. Holy shit, dude, you have no idea. One could easily write a 1,000-page textbook trying to teach everything you would want to know to do a high-quality version of this networking, and it would only kind of scratch the surface and not be able to teach what experienced people know. And I don't know if he continued. Oh, I think this person mentioned kind of what I mentioned earlier when he said quickly figuring out the complexities. Maybe he meant how complex like it actually is. And then Jonathan Blow said that would make more sense, but it didn't seem like he was saying that when I look at the series of messages in context, but maybe. And then I think he just kind of ended it with, I think your games are great and I appreciate you making them. And that's a little disappointing. I mean, I was hoping for a conclusion. Like, you can't just back down after making big claims, like just because Jonathan Blow showed up. Like, I just don't like it when people, just back down. Like, you had an argument, make your argument. You can't just get scared when somebody bigger than you shows up or somebody who has more authority on the subject. Either admit you were wrong or finish your argument. This is kind of weak in my opinion. But anyways, this is just one Twitter thread among thousands and millions. That's why I don't really get too deep into this AI stuff. Like, I just don't care. I don't care if AGI comes out tomorrow, ties me up and forces me to, do some crazy thing for the rest of my life. As long as it's not having to listen to any of this crap anymore, I'll take it. I really will at this point. It would be so easy for me to make a video every time some new AI model releases some kind of AI controversy, some kind of random thing. I just can't do it, guys. And I encourage you to not really watch those videos. You got to think about this for a second. Does it really matter? If I had shown you all the benchmarks, all the little things, does it really matter? Let me, again, just tell you. Like the TLDR, there are some models that are better than others. Claude is pretty good for coding. That's probably what you care about. The deep research thing has come out that shows like the chain of thought reasoning. That is a pretty significant advancement because it's kind of like an iterative process. It's like you send one message and then the model will kind of prompt itself. If I were you, I would kind of follow the more reasonable people, the people that are smarter, the people that aren't super sensational. I try not to be sensational on both sides. I'm not out here telling you AI is gonna, be your next girlfriend. You're not gonna need to get married anymore. Just AI, guys. AI this, AI. Did I mention AI? And I'm also not one of those people saying, hey, just forget about AI. Just pretend like it doesn't exist. Of course you should use it. I use it. Most people use it. There is some value in it. I think, another good person to follow would be this. I think his name is pronounced Gurgly, and if I'm mispronouncing it, sorry. But very, very smart guy. He's, really like a journalist, in my opinion, in terms of tech, better than most tech journalists. He always has very reasonable takes. So he mentions that there's a lazy narrative going around social media about how software engineer jobs are dying by screenshotting the image on the left, a massive decline in job postings. Unfortunately, those posting it never looked closer. I did. This is the COVID effect. It's everywhere. And taking a closer look, you see that it's kind of hard to see over here. This second on the right side is what's more important. But you see kind of, during COVID, you saw a big spike of job postings and then it kind of went back down. It seems like it was largely a reversion to the mean in some respects. I think there's a lot of things going on in the economics. Obviously, like software engineering jobs in some sense have become harder to get. I think part of that is like the oversupply of software engineers. A lot of that is outsourcing. But you kind of see over here that even though for like the blue line is software devs, and I think the purple one is for banking and finance, you can see that the spike and the decline wasn't as severe in banking and finance, but it still had kind of the same correlation. And again, part of that could be outsourcing. Part of that could be the fact that there's so many more people like TikTok. And during COVID, people realized you can just work from home and just code like a little bit on your computer. That's not really how it works. Like in most cases, even at Google, you gotta go to work. You gotta get your job done. You gotta do stuff. It's not as easy as people are trying to make it out to be. That doesn't mean it's not worth it. Still to this day, software jobs are generally better than other professions. I mean, in medicine and banking and finance and stuff, like you're not going to be just coasting along doing that either. So try to find something you enjoy if you're worried about that. And I'm not going to go through like his entire analysis. I encourage you guys to do that. There is this piece that I actually saw earlier this month, Tim O'Reilly from the O'Reilly Books company. And he had an article, and I think I'll probably make a video on that one. That might be one of my last videos related to AI because I think his take was very, very smart and reasonable, whether you agree with it or not. Again, it's not sensationalist. Like he's just making arguments. He's kind of giving a historical perspective. I think that's a very smart way to think about this. I feel every time somebody opens up a AI related video or AI news article, like they're just looking to see, like there's a part of them that's anxious and that anxiety is making them want to click it because they want to know, okay, is this the moment? Is now the time that I'm about to be replaced by AI? And I just feel like that is just a complete waste of your time to be doing that. There are other things. Yes, I use old Reddit, by the way. The new UI is pretty garbage, but you can see Microsoft CEO, he's a pretty smart guy. Like whether you agree with him or not, he's generally not sensationalist. You can, people like Elon Musk, Sam Altman, you could say they're also very smart. I think they're very smart, but they're pretty sensationalist. Let's be honest. Even if you agree with them, they kind of exaggerate, they hype. That's their job. They're almost salesmen. This guy's not quite that. Obviously, he has some incentives as well. But one of the things he kind of mentioned is that, and this wasn't in this post or this interview that he had, but on a separate podcast. I think it was this podcast. I remember listening to the entire thing, and I think throughout it, he mentioned that his feelings are somewhat divergent from Sam Altman's. He is not wanting to invest as much as Sam Altman is. He is not so obsessed with this AGI term, this concept of AGI, and I tend to agree with him because he's looking at it from like an economic perspective, a return on investment perspective. And at this point, the return on investment of creating these foundational models just quite isn't really there because he had like an interesting take, and I'll let you guys listen to it for a second. He's talking about buying GPUs and kind of like the investment and return on investment of that for Microsoft.
For training, and then the next year it goes into inference. And that's sort of the stable state I think we will get into across the fleet for both utilization and the ROIC, and then the demand meets supply. And like basically, to your point about everybody saying, oh, wow, have the exponentials stopped? One of the other things is the economic realities will also sort of stop, right? I mean, at some point, everybody will look and say, what's the economically rational thing to do?
I agree.
Which is, hey, even if I double every year's capability, but I'm not able to sell that inventory. And the other problem is the winner's curse, right? Which is, if you don't even have to publish a paper. The other folks have to just look at your capability and do either a distillation. Yeah. It's just impossible. It's kind of like piracy, right? I mean, you can sort of all kinds of terms of use, but it's impossible to control distillation. That's one. Second thing is, you don't even have to do anything. You just you reverse engineer that capability and you do it in a more compute efficient way. And so given all this, I think there will be a governor on how much people will kind of chase. Right now, a little bit of it, everybody wants to be first. It's great, but at some point, all the economic reality will set in on everyone. And the network effects are in the app layer. So why would I want to spend a lot on some model capability if the network effects are all on the app layer?
Yeah, so just to kind of paraphrase what he's talking about, he's saying that, he's not necessarily saying that like the progress of AI is going to slow down or anything like that. He's more thinking of it from like an investment perspective because they've invested a lot of money in OpenAI. But his point still stands in that why are people going to continue to invest money in it when one of the points that I made in my DeepSeek video reacting to that news was that it seems at this point that it doesn't really matter who creates what model. Pretty much every model is going to, roughly even out because he's talking about like the distillation of like the data from existing models to train new models. And again, like reverse engineering and things of that nature. When I mentioned this, I had a lot of people that thought they were really smart. I had a research scientist or something at Amazon tell me that I was completely wrong. Like, hey, DeepSeek definitely didn't take any data from GPT or anything like that. You can't prove that. You can't prove that. It wasn't in the research papers. I just don't understand how people are so naive to think like that. I really just don't. How people that are so smart, I'm sure they probably believe that Amazon isn't taking any of their, retail sellers data, the third-party sellers on Amazon. I bet they believe that too. I bet they believe that Alexa isn't storing, user data and things like that. I worked at Alexa and I can't really probably talk about it further, but I really don't understand why people are using those voice assistants pretending like their data, like their voice data is safe. It's kind of mind-boggling to me. There's this headline where Microsoft CEO admits that AI is generating basically no value. The real benchmark is the world growing at 10%. Again, this is kind of sensationalist as well. So that's pretty unfortunate. But the point is true. He did mention this part. Like, if we do get AGI, if we do get AI advancing very quickly, we should start to see some pretty rapid economic growth, which will generally be a good thing. Historically, when you look at periods of time, generally that's been good. When we had the railroads built, when we had the industrial revolution, like steel manufacturing, oil, and things like that, generally most people did benefit. To be honest, one of the things that I take comfort in is knowing that today, most of us, even in like underdeveloped countries, we are living our lives even better than some of the richest people in the world 100 years ago. In 100 years, like that's how big the difference is. The poorest people have a quality of life so much better than even the richest people, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies. And despite that, people are still not happy. So, happiness is something different. Like you don't just get it from money or from raising your quality of life. And I'll tell you, you definitely don't get it by going through this garbage hype cycle of, highs and lows, doom and gloom, constant obsession over these things that frankly don't matter. Just go live your life. Enjoy every day, appreciate the little things, appreciate things. I don't know about tomorrow, but today I have a lot of things that I get to work on, that I get to enjoy, and tomorrow will figure itself out.